I finally found out why are they struggling to sell cars? Why are they trucks? Why do they have to give them away? People have figured them out. That's why. Is it the quality? Is it the fact that the doors don't close properly, or they tend to leak oil, or they spend more time in the service shop than a lot of other manufacturers? Is it the recalls? Is it the fact that they just don't last all that long? Those are all great reasons, and customers can ultimately buy anything for the right price. But see, I figured this out, and after I've been doing a little bit of number crunching, I figured I really understand now why this is going on, why Stellantis is no longer competitive, why brands like Jeep and Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, why those vehicles are literally on the verge and they're struggling. I've done some math, so I just want to say I've put together some numbers here and it all makes sense. So first of all, when I've done some digging. Let's wind this back a little bit, shall we? I think back, how much have things changed in the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, quarter century? I mean, we can't scale back year over year. Year over year, we see the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of the market and the fluctuations. And, everybody's talking stock prices and this and that. And that's all just a bunch of big heads talking numbers. But I come from an engineering background and I can speak numbers with the best of them. And I can tell you right now, I've pulled together some numbers that really make this all make sense. Why Stellantis and some of those companies under Stellantis are on the verge. So this all starts at the year 2000. It goes even beyond that. But for an easy calculation, I went back to the year 2000. And I looked and I priced a variety of different makes and models. I priced out a Camry, a Ram, a Ford F-150, a Honda Accord, and a Jeep Wrangler. So a mixed bag of just about a few different brands in there. Okay. And I pulled together some numbers and I looked at this and I said, okay, what is the general inflationary increases that we've seen year over year? What has the cost of living gone from the year 2000? So essentially the turn of the millennium, whatever it is, the turn of the calendar back in 2000, Jan 1. That was a long time ago. That was 25 years ago. How much have car prices changed? How much has the cost of living changed? When you could buy a cheeseburger for, 25 cents and today it's going to cost you $4. How much have things changed? A lot. In short, a lot. Okay. But some things have changed a lot more than other things. And when I use the US inflationary calculator, cost of living calculator, and I punch in the numbers and I say, okay, a $20,000 item back in 2000 is now, and I run the calculation based on the year-over-year inflationary increases, that has gone up as much as 88.1%. So the overall US calculation of cost of living has gone up 88%. That's right, 88%. So something that was 20 grand cost you a little less than 40 grand today. So if we're looking at things that maybe, we would expect 20 grand back in 2000, maybe a mid-sized car, today should probably cost about $37,000, $38,000 for that same vehicle with same level of, more or less the same level of value, if you will. Okay. I know even, I think about some houses cost 20 grand back then, and today, well, we know houses aren't anywhere near that. But I ran some numbers here, and I want to do this comparison for your own eyes only, because to me, honestly, this tells the whole story. So when we think about the fact that we can't afford cars anymore, is it any surprise? When we think of the average inflationary rate increases have gone 88% in the last 25 years. We also know that most salaries are usually falling behind. So if you're seeing a year-over-year increase of, say, 4 or 5%, but your salary may only go up 1.5%, maybe 2% year-over-year, we know that we've been losing buying power. That's pretty clear. Okay, so when we're saying the U.S. inflationary increases have gone up in the last 25 years of 88%, we know our incomes have probably gone up 50 to 60% in that same time. So we're losing the grip of buying power and we're losing the ability to keep up with the cost of living increases in inflation. But let's do some numbers here, shall we? So I look at a car that has always been a stalwart for the brand, and you wonder why brands like Toyota have managed to stay very relevant. And Toyota has always had it easy selling cars. And people think, oh, it's reliability. You know what? It's not reliability. Because even Toyota and the Tundra, they've been having problems with some durability problems. And they had some of those, bad piston rings, low pressure piston rings or oil control rings. And they've had engines that have burned oil. They've had bad head gaskets in, 2004 runners. Remember those, the 3 liters? So it's not just about reliability. Toyota's had their ups and downs. They're not perfect like every other car brand. But they're trustworthy, and the lower cost of ownership definitely creeps in there. But it's always comes down to value for the money. So when we look at a Toyota Camry, the fact that they're selling these like hotcakes for the last 4 or 5 years, it's not a shock. And it's not because of reliability, even though it's a factor. People feel comfortable in that. Think of it back in 2000. I've run the math here. A 2000 Toyota Camry in base trim, CE or whatever it was. Base trim, LECE. They started at $17,518 in the US market. Well, that same car, actually, you get even more technology now, better performance. Some of them now, the brand new 25s are actually hybrid. So what we're seeing now on the US market in US dollars is a base price of $28,400. That means that it's a 1.62 times from 2000 to 2025. Understand? So what we've seen is a 62% increase in the cost of a new Toyota Camry. When you compare that to 88% of cost of living increase, Camrys have actually fallen behind. They're actually better value today than they were 25 years ago. The math does not lie. The math does the mathing, and straight up, a Camry is better value in 25 than it was many moons ago. So at 62%, we've seen the increased cost of a Camry in the last 25 years. So a lot of people like to bust the balls of a lot of these car manufacturers, but in reality, a car brand like Toyota has actually provided more value, more bang for buck for less money. Okay, let's look at another one. The Honda Accord, shall we? Back in 2000, those cars went for about $15,350 in base trim. Well, in current generation, in a 2025 Honda Accord, they're now base stickering for $28,295. That means they're at 1.84 times multiplier. So a brand new Accord from 2000 to today has actually gone up about 89%. So they're pretty much right on the money with the standard cost of living. So even if you're looking at a Honda, a Civic, or an Accord, you're getting pretty much on par. That's almost unheard of. I mean, a Big Mac costs more than the inflationary increase. So when they talk about core inflation sitting at 88%, the Honda Accords are even showing relatively good value. Hence, when you're looking at days supply on the indexes of the vehicle's Manheim index for used, great, fine, that's irrelevant. But when we're talking about days supply and the fact that Hondas, Lexus, Acura, Toyota are all in that low day supply. Why? Because people see them as good value. Is it because they like Honda Accords? Honda Accords are a little bit boring, so are Camrys. But you know what? The value is there. And so you're talking about a car that now is on par with the standard inflationary increases. So most people are able to see the value in buying a Camry or an Accord. Okay, let's try another one. How about a Ford F-150? And we wonder, a lot of the truck prices have gone out of this world. And granted, trucks, yeah, now they're putting crew cabs and 4x4s, and they got the big screens and heated, cooled seats. See, a lot of the reason these cars and trucks are getting so expensive is all the technology. But wait a minute, is it really? I mean, we've just shown that Toyota is able to give you hybrid technology. You get heated steering wheels, you get a sunroof, you get mag wheels, and you're doing it for less than the inflationary increases. So then why is it these domestic OEMs think that they're going to sell us on the fact that they're increasing prices to make up for all this technology? Could it maybe be a poor business model? Could it maybe be overpaying their top executives? Could it be maybe gouging the consumer? Or definitely sleight of hand, allowing them to charge more for less vehicle? I think it could be any one of those. But the value proposition only comes in trucks because a lot of the trucks are sold to fleets, people doing work, And let's be honest, a lot of people like buying trucks now because it's a great vehicle. It's almost like luxury vehicles these days. But an F-150 back in 2000 and base trim was $15,950. Today, a base F-150 in 2025, 25 years later, is up around 40 grand, 39.99, whatever. It's irrelevant. In other words, it's 2.5 times what it was back 25 years ago, or about 150% increase. So how do you go 150% increase when the core inflationary increases are closer to 90%? It's a clear indication that Ford's gotten run away with the cost increases on their F-150s. And they're going to tell you that, well, you know, we're giving you all this technology and big screens. And I've just told you, we're seeing the same kind of technology being plopped into the Accords and the Camrys. They're getting heated seats. They're getting heated steering wheel. They're getting sunroofs. And sure, they don't have four-wheel drive, but a lot of them have all-wheel drive systems. So then why is it that these big hunk of metals like the F-150, we're seeing these massive increases in cost, 150%, almost virtually double what the core inflationary increases are? That's starting to paint a picture. If it wasn't for the fact that trucks are becoming popular for work and play, I don't think they'd even have a market. Okay, let's try another one. I will save the good one for the end here, by the way. We're going to show you really why I truly believe Stellantis is in dire straits. Because the next one, this isn't the last one, there's one more. We'll talk about the Ram here in a second. But the Jeep Wrangler, back in 2000, stickered for $14,995. Back when they actually represented some value. But see, here's the thing. Back in 2000, you know, you could get a 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder, you could get all kinds of different things. But the point is, they haven't changed that much. A Wrangler is still the same old bucket. And if you look at the way they're built on that cheap frame and with a, you know, a rag top or what have you, it really hasn't done much. The only difference now, they're putting in that center screen and they've used a fuel injected engine, and you know, there's some subtle updates, but it's actually largely the same vehicle, and there's very little innovation going on with a Wrangler. But back in 2000, a Wrangler was about 2.2 times the price now what it was back in 2000. That's right. You're talking 120% increase, because they're back now, they're stickering for $32,690. So a Jeep Wrangler now is actually up 120%. That's right, 120% when we compare to the core inflation rate being closer to 90%. So even Wranglers have losing touch with the reality. Where does all that extra cost go? The input costs. You know, we're talking about a lot of the chief executives. They like their big paychecks. They like their big bonuses. So does a lot of the union workers. They like their big bonuses. They like the big paychecks. But that gets transferred to you, the buyer. So how is it now that they're trying to cry the blues that they're not making a buck and they have to charge every dollar, when Toyota, Honda are proving that they can advance newer technology and show the value, and they're actually undercutting and underwriting what we're seeing going on with the core inflation? Toyota and Honda are able to do it and maintain profitability at it. They're not on the verge of going under. Talk to Nissan about being lacking competitiveness. So even the Jeep Wrangler is honestly a piece of Stellantis, and it's proof right there they've lost touch with some of this reality. But you know what? I can't. Here's the next one. The Ram. Ram 1500. We know tradesmen, some of the latest, the base model tradesmen and some of those base trucks that you can get back in 24, 25. The base Ram today costs around $40,275 for a base Ram in 25. The base Ram half-ton truck back in 2000 was about $14,895. That's a 2.7 times multiplier from 2000 to 25 years later. On top of it, when you actually calculate this out, that's 170% of what it was 25 years ago. When the core inflation's 88%, that's over, or at least double. It's more or less double what it was 25 years ago. Now, a lot of you are like, well, that's okay, that's fine, everything goes up. No. But the math doesn't lie. Core inflation is at close to just under 90%, and Ram, being one of the worst, including Jeep and many of the other Stellantis products, are up in that, 120, 150, 170% increases like the new Ram. 170% increase of what they were 25 years ago. Whereas everybody else is finding ways to be at 100%, 110%, 90%, or even like the Toyotas being even less at sitting at 62% increase. It begs the question, where's the value proposition? Buyers are speaking with their wallets, and we're seeing more and more of that now. Less people willing to pay over market value, less people willing to pay market adjustment fees, less people willing to buy even those products at all. And now what we're seeing, Stellantis with Rams and Jeeps and Chryslers having to really incentivize the shit out of all of those vehicles just to get them moving out the door. We're seeing the market day supply, what's going on with Stellantis. Remember, look, 2-3 years ago, a lot of those were 150, 200, 250 days market day supply. In other words, if they stopped production, it would take them almost a year to sell what they had out on the floor. Of course, floor plan costs was eating out local dealers. And it's pretty obvious to me that Stellantis was getting overzealous with their charging infrastructure back 2 or 3 years ago. So now people are starting to realize, but now as well, running the math on this, starting to be make a lot more sense to me as well. And it should make a lot more sense to you. It's all about value proposition. So when we all scramble and talk about why does a Toyota have a 32 market day supply and a Ram have a 140 day supply, you shouldn't be too shocked because the quality is part of it. But people need trucks. There's a value there that people just, you like trucks. But even the Toyota Tundra with all these recalls and bad problematic engines, these new 3.4s, people are still buying them. Why? Because the value proposition. Because even though prices of new Toyotas are going up, they haven't lost touch with their core market, was the middle class. The people that, like you and I, that can only afford vehicles like that don't want to blow our whole wad and blow the next 20 years of mortgage payments on a vehicle. Rather, they want something that's affordable. And that's a big reason why there's so much pushback on hybridization, a lot of this technology, big screens, electric this, electric that, is because that's extra cost. Well, that's not the only cost going into these increases. That's one of them. That's one of the input costs is technology. The other input cost is poor business model and the fact that the senior players are all collecting massive paychecks. So if you really actually ever get down to it, that's why I truly believe Stellantis is going to go out of business. In my own personal opinion, time will tell if this actually happens. But from what I can see, unless something drastic changes and they refigure that, wait a minute, we need to provide better value proposition, it's all downhill from there, everybody.